All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to the live show. I am Brooks from No BS, joined by Adam. We're talking about culture today. We're talking about how and which cultures are allowed to exist in a couple of different ways, a couple of different contexts. This is sparked from a little bit of a debate and argument we had online. And me and Adam decided to finally hash it out. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, we go round and round about this stuff. I'm here to correct you. Your
Yeah, I was
incorrect
trying to.
assumptions about the world.
Yeah, and that's how I try to put it too. I don't want to say this is a debate. This isn't an attack or a got ya. I just think if I could get a good conversation going, I could explain to you why you're so very, very wrong.
So you want to set up your argument first? We're talking, and the intro got cut off a little bit on my end. Just so you, I'm on my channel, my Think Club channel. I usually do debates, cultural stuff on my Think Club channel. I'm trying to do just art stuff on my Adam Friended channel. So, but yes, we're going to
Okay.
talk about. I mean, and this is a good time to talk about it, I guess, with all the Black Lives Matter stuff going, and
Yeah,
race
yeah.
is
There's a
top of
lot
them.
of talk
Yeah.
about culture and people are tearing down statues. They're trying to delete our history. And that's why I find it particularly troublesome. So let me ask you to actually start because this kind of comes from we did a stream together a while back,
Hmm.
and I heard an interesting line in it. I don't want to
Hmm.
misquote you or anything, but the basic premise was like white people don't have a culture.
Was
White
this
people,
was this the
white
infamous
culture.
stream with PSA Sitch and me?
Yeah, it was the last
Okay.
time we streamed.
Okay.
And this came up, and this is the kind of point that we've still been talking about to this day. But don't let me phrase it differently or anything. Why don't you come out with a phrasing you feel comfortable with for
Well, I
that
don't. I
premise?
don't know that. First of all, I'm not. I can't speak for PSA Sitch. Obviously, if you want to talk to him, you can. I don't remember saying this. Maybe I did say it. I think PSA Sitch was saying that, white is not a culture. I don't think that white is a culture too. There are certain groups that are ethno nationalists that are kind of a culture. So the way that I'm
Mhm.
looking at it, they're in humanity, there are nested layers of culture. So you can break them down, and I did my best just cursory because I knew we were talking about this. So I would say that like humans are kind of a culture. We all need water, we all need food, we all reproduce in a certain way. We all form some kind of family groups. Like obviously there's
Sure.
different family groups from culture to culture, but they like having babies and reproduction, all that. That's a shared culture, a human culture, let's call it. And I would say the next largest slice of culture with the most number of people contributing to it would be religions. There's Christianity, there's Islam, there's Judaism. These are the biggest of the world religions. That is a layer of culture. Below that, I would say there are nations. Nations are a layer of culture. And this is where you and I tend to go back and forth because we're talking about American culture, and you tend to be making the argument that American culture is white culture. But let me continue down my nested hierarchy of cultures. Below
Okay.
nations, there are political parties, which are a completely different type of culture. There's the Democratic Party, which is a culture. There's the progressive culture. There's the liberal culture. There's the anarcho-capitalist culture. There's the leftist culture, the commie culture. Like I would classify them as all cultures. And then even below that, I would classify, well, some of these are nested, and some of these are overarching, overlocking. Like you can be a member of multiple cultures at once. I would say below that is the fandom culture, and I would say the fandom
Okay,
culture is
okay, and
probably the
I'm just
lowest
gonna
level of
slow you down.
culture.
I appreciate, your attention to detail, but let's not get too far down the line. Let's just start with something simple. Do you think white culture exists?
Well, it depends upon how you classify white culture. I do think
And
ethno
that's what gets
national
us to the
culture exists. I think the ethno nationalists do have a culture
okay,
that's based on white
okay.
culture. I,
So
I
let me
think at
have a
one
moment
time,
here.
go ahead.
Yeah. I appreciate your enthusiasm, but to me, it's pretty simple, and I think it's just the kind of thing it is a lot of semantics here. This is like a
Mhm.
semantics, like, we're calling similar things different things, and I think that kind of might seem like me that's not a cop out for me because I think it is a semantics argument, but at the underlying part and the problem is, The argument that you are on the side of, I think there's a down the line an anti-white tone to it. I think
Mm-hmm.
you might not know it. I know you a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you're a racist. I don't think you're a
Mm-hmm.
bad person.
Why, thank
Just
you.
maybe misled, maybe wrong on some issues. But the point is, and the reason I'm so against the argument against white culture is there's an underlying tone of anti-whiteness, even if it doesn't seem overt. There's like you're trying to diminish this. And what I would ask you next is, do you think that black culture exists?
Well, no. I mean, it's the same exact thing because
Yeah.
what
So
is black
basically,
culture? I
you
asked
don't
you
have
this.
any with your argument, you're saying like you're pretty nihilist because it's just like there's no white culture, there's no black culture, there's not even like a Jewish culture or whatever Middle Eastern. You could go with a wider like religion, like because you just kind of want to break things down so much that you're basically saying if there's too many subgroups in a group, that means the larger group doesn't exist.
What is
Does it sound like that's something you would
Can you
like?
answer the
This sounds
question
to
that
me like that's what you're saying.
Can you answer the question that I gave you on Twitter? I
Which
asked
one?
you on Twitter, what is rap culture?
Yeah, I mean, rap is a style of music. I
Hmm.
think it mostly originated in America, part of, a large part of the African American culture.
It's
Um,
predominantly black, correct?
yeah,
But there
yeah,
are
sure,
white rappers.
right, right, and I understand that, but I think what you're getting lost in is like if you can point to a group and if they have a minority within their group, it doesn't mean the majority doesn't exist.
Well, the
You know
reason
what
I
I
brought
mean?
up
Like,
rap culture is because rap culture came out of America. It's an
right.
American culture. So how can you say that like a predominantly black rap culture and something like South African blacks have anything in common? Like, how can you
Right.
say
Well,
that
I
South
mean,
African blacks are black culture and rap culture is black culture when they show no similarities whatsoever? Don't you think
they
culture
actually
is
have a
based
lot
on
in common.
behavior, not on skin color?
They actually have a lot in common, though. Like that's
Okay.
another point that we could get to. And then the other point to reverse yours is, there's white people in Africa. South Africa had
Sure.
large
Totally.
colonies, like the Congo had colonies. Like just because there's a minority in an area doesn't mean the majority like loses its identity. Like, China is another big example. Like we kind of say Chinese culture, even though there's a billion people there, they have a lot of states and subgroups, and some of them are speaking like almost totally different dialects. But the point is, you can still generalize and you can still say, hey, there's a certain culture, there's a white culture, there's a black culture, there's a brown culture. That one's probably the least used term. But that brings me back to the semantics part of this. And it's like, basically, I think what you're looking past a little bit is, for example, when we say this in America, like when we say white culture, we mean like American historical culture, which is also descendant from Europeans. Like
Uh,
it's like a catch-all term. Like when people say white in America, that's what they mean. At least in my most of my experiences, most of the things I've seen and read, like white culture is American, and since we've been historically majority white, like granted, it's not a large majority anymore, but from the beginning of our history, we were like 99% white at some point. So like I think that's a part that I want to hear your take on because
those white people hated each other, though. I'm reading a book on Will Eisner, the cartoonist, who was Jewish, and he was hated by the Catholics in his own neighborhood, tortured every
what does
day
that
by these
mean?
Catholic people. Well,
People
he's
within a
white.
culture can
They're
hate each
white.
other.
They both have the same skin color. Uh,
Yeah,
ha-
but that doesn't change what I said.
well,
Groups have fights within each other. Like there's
okay.
black people that fight within their groups. There's
You're saying a
Hispanics.
Catholic and a Jew both share the same white culture. Like culture loses all its meaning when you tag it to skin color. Like isn't culture
Well,
about
that's the thing.
behavior?
No, not necessarily. But the thing is, like, I'm not actually like might sound like that because I'm coming from a defensive stance, but I'm not actually like saying, "Oh, this is the defining characteristic." Like it's not because they're white. I'm saying this because we just happen to be white. Like
Mhm.
Europeans are from Europe. That's the majority of the way people look. And you can't like just brush that off. Like people that look similar get along in similar ways. And if you're from the same area, yeah, you can have a different family or a different background or religion, or you could like a different sport or something. But when you have that kind of collective, like you look like me, I mean, that's like a big part of like ancient culture
To
and like,
some people,
tribes and stuff like that.
not really, because I mean, even tribes would distinguish themselves further than skin color with dress and stuff. And there have been all these studies that show that people will will team up along just arbitrary lines, like the same eye color, wearing the same outfit. So why I don't understand how. Yes, there is a group of people who part of their culture is they're obsessed with whiteness. They're the ethno nationalists. They have a culture, but I don't see how you can say all of white culture fits in that ethno nationalist box when obviously it doesn't.
Well, no one said that.
Well, where? Okay, so where?
You're the one that's trying to generalize like I just said white culture exists. I said that
Mhm.
white people have culture and they can have many different ones. Like it could
Okay.
be American, it could be
But
Australian,
how can
it
you
could
say
be South.
American is white culture when we have 13% of our culture is black? And also those blacks are like freed slaves, which like how can you say that they're not part of the American story? Like to say
I didn't
someone
say
who's
that.
born in
I didn't
America,
say that. Slow down.
okay,
No one said that.
okay. So someone who's born in America, black, how can you say that they aren't any more American? They were born here. They have every right to
No
be
one's
here.
saying that, dude. No one's
Okay.
saying that. That's the thing. You're making a lot of false assumptions.
So
Like
are
you
you
just got to
so
start with the point is white culture exists.
but
And
if
there's many different forms of it. Like there's many countries and there's Europe. Now there's the colonies that spread out from Europe that turn into other countries, America, Canada, Australia, South Africa, New Zealand. Like these are all white culture. It's just you're
is
like
America white culture? And I believe what I want to stick to America because I don't know a lot about these other cultures. Like I don't feel qualified to speak on New Zealand culture. Okay,
okay.
so
Okay, well, you could in my opinion, okay,
we're
that's a
both
good
American.
question.
Let's talk about America. Is America white
Sure.
culture?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say America is a product of white culture. Where historically we've been majority white, especially in the beginning, especially in the early history. We were built on these principles that came from Europe, that came from places like Britain, a lot of immigrants from Germany, Spain, Italy, whichever. A lot of those people came in. They were all white. Like we're talking like 99% white in the beginning. So as far as over time, like yes, things have changed now. We have a lot more diversity. We have a lot more mix, and that's still relatively new. I mean, it started around the '60s when the immigration stuff opened up, and we could have a more nuanced argument about recent history. But if you're talking about like the first 200 years of this country, I mean, yeah,
So we're debating over whether or not whiteness is essential to American culture, and I would say that's
no, we're
totally
not.
irrelevant, and you would say that it is.
No, no, that's not
Okay,
what we're
so
debating. Like,
whiteness
yeah,
is
that's the
not
thing.
relevant to American culture.
It is relevant. It's part of it. But what the point is, and the thing I'm arguing against from the beginning is white culture exists.
Hmm.
Okay.
Which
It's a
I disagree
thing.
with. I don't I like I. What is white culture?
I mean, it's just descendants, usually descendants from Europe. I mean, white people originated there and now they've spread out to different countries, but descendants from Europe. I mean, that's like I was trying to tell you, like when you
So,
say
but
white people in America,
aren't you saying French culture and English culture are the same then because they're both white?
no, they
Okay.
can be different.
So you're it sounds like, and I have my hierarchy here still. It sounds like you're making You want to add to the hierarchy. I have humans, religions, nations, political parties, fandoms, and you want to add race to that hierarchy somewhere. Where do you want to add race to? Below humans, above religion? Because there
I
are
mean,
plenty of
race
religions
isn't.
that are not ethnocentric.
Yeah,
Christianity
and
is
I
not
mean,
ethnocentric.
I'm not really focused on race. If I know I might sound like that today, but my point is to defend a group that's being maligned and saying
Yeah,
we don't have a culture.
dude, I fucking hate the
So
the
this is like
white
a
race,
part of
the
what's going
racists
on.
against
Like,
white people. I fucking hate. You and I
yeah,
share
and
that.
that's the
It's
thing.
fucking
Like, you
bullshit.
don't seem to realize it, but that's what your argument is feeding into.
I don't see how though. Like,
Like, you're
the
denying
these
white
white.
people's existence. Like, you're denying our like our there's a certain amount of like collectiveness. Like, we have similar morals, we have things that we've built over time, we have similar languages, like our letter system, romantic languages. Like, there's a lot of core like white people stuff that you're not getting. Like, I
But
think I think
French,
the problem is you're just so like, and this happens to a lot of people, especially liberals who don't want to see it. It's like you're just so ingrained in the culture you can't even see it. You know
no,
what I
I
mean?
can't. Hold on. We did a whole stream on Sunday talking about Robin DiAngelo, what a racist bitch he is against white people.
Right,
Like, I
right.
don't understand how you think uh, because people like Robin DiAngelo are racist fucking bitches that somehow makes a white culture exist. Like, it's the same thing if people are racist against black people, it doesn't make every black nation on the same on the planet Earth the same culture. They're different cultures.
Well, I think that's the thing. Like, I was trying to tell you about semantics
Mhm.
earlier, and I was trying to say, hey, we're saying similar things sometimes. You just don't want to say it in the way like we're trying to get each other to say something in a different way.
I'm not trying to get you to say. I'm not Brooks, we had you on our show. I honestly don't believe that you're a racist. I don't think that you are. I think that you are being maligned by people in a racial way that it's making you uncomfortable and you're lashing out at that. That's what I think is going on here. Am I close? I mean, I don't want to speak for you. You're here. I can
I
just
mean,
ask you.
there's definitely people that call me racist, like your co-host. I mean, for sure. But
Yeah,
the
totally.
point the point today is like there's white people have a culture. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to explain it a couple different ways, but
What
just
cult?
because there's a lot of differences and like a lot of sections and stuff, like it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You
Any?
know?
But hold on a second. There is a culture. Let's say goth culture. Okay, is goth culture exclusively white? Does goth culture forbid black people to be a part of it? I don't think so.
Well, no one said it did, dude.
Well, then if
You
anyone
have
can
this weird
participate in a culture,
idea. Like, you just have this weird specific idea of the way things go, and
mhm.
like you're using it to explain away ideas you don't like. You know, like you're saying, like I say white culture exists, and you say, oh, well, there's no world unified exactly the same white culture across the world. And I'm like, dude, I never said that. You
Okay.
said that.
So, but you are saying white culture exists. So I'm just trying to define exactly
Yeah, it
what you mean
exists,
by that.
obviously. American is built on white culture. Europe
But
is still a lot of white culture. Australia, New Zealand, these are
America
all
is
white culture.
built on multiculturalism. I know that burns your ears, but America is built on we're going to build a culture not based on skin color, not based on the language you speak, based on the ethics of America.
So if America was built on multiculturalism, then why didn't it get multicultural until like 200 years after they started it?
Because it took the culture time to change. It took the culture time to catch up. The founding fathers set out a goal that it took time for the culture to take up and adopt. And this American experiment has just been the unfolding of that goal. I mean, the people who came to America came here because they were fleeing religious persecution. They said, "Listen, People are telling us that we can't have our individual culture. They're saying we have to be a part of their culture whether we want to or not. And they said we don't want that. We want to develop our own individual culture. Those people came
Okay,
to
but
America and
you
started their
claim
own thing.
America was built on multiculturalism, but we know that didn't exist hundreds of years later. So where do you get that from? Like what point or document or quote says to you that we wanted to be totally multicultural?
Well, there's always been various influxes of immigrants from around the world fleeing persecution. That's part of the American story. Those immigrants come here and they usually form their own communities. Like
Right,
there's the
right. And I
Asian,
know that
like we have
happens, and I'm not
Chinatown,
against
like
that.
for a reason, right?
I'm not against that either. Like, I'm totally for, like, I'm not trying to keep, like, this isn't about, oh, let's make America white again or something
Hmm.
stupid like that. The point is, and this is what I think you're missing too. Like, I saw someone on Twitter getting it wrong as well. Like, I'm not trying to say it has to be white or it's about being white. I'm just saying it happens to be white. You know, it's
Hmm.
just this is what the people that came here, this is what the founding fathers were. This is where they started the
Do
colonies.
you
It
understand
happened.
though that you're excluding people when you do that?
How?
Well, you're excluding rap culture, which I would like to take credit
Well,
for,
rap
since
culture
it's like
came like
awesome.
200 years later.
Yeah, but
You're
rap
talking about
culture is predominantly black.
right, but
But I'd like to think
that
rap culture is American.
okay. Well, let me explain it to you like this. You can have a country like this, and you can have a minority still come up with the music within it, and it will
Yes.
still be part of white culture.
All cultures are no. So see, this is where we're getting into crazy town. Because now you're saying that rap culture is white culture simply because
I'm
it's
not saying
American.
that. I'm not saying it like that, dude. Like easy with the straw man, okay?
Okay,
Like you
okay.
keep telling me what I'm
Just,
saying a lot. You're pulling a, you should listen to your man Jordan Peterson a little better because he knows not to put words in people's mouths. And
what is the
you're the
rule?
you're the
What is the
you're the
rule?
JP Clips guy. You should be alerted of that. But basically, the
That's
point
funny.
is like white culture exists, and even if a country was started by white people, that's just a coincidence. Like, I'm not saying, oh, there was some ethno state. Like, I'm not saying, oh, Canada had to only have white people. Like, it just, that's just how it was. It happened to be white people. And then, yes, minorities have kept coming in. That's fine. That's great. Let's have some new people. Different things changed over hundreds of years. And no, I'm not saying, oh, white people like made rap music. Like, I'm not trying to claim that. I'm just saying it came out of this country with this history, and there's a lot of white culture in our history. Now it's changing, and it could change more. We could see more demographic changes, which is all, estimated and probably happening. And then maybe in another 50 years, it could totally change. And you could say, this is there's a lot of black culture in this country now, or there's, brown culture is the dominant force, and they could change the laws and everything. But right now, we're still living with the same constitution, the same, major cities and infrastructure that was all set up and built by these original colonists that happen to be white. That's the thing. You got to keep that in mind. It's not like because they're white, it's they happened to be white. Does that make sense?
Yeah, my cat has dementia. You can probably hear in the background
Oh
screaming.
no, it's okay.
So the thing that I want to get to is, like, do you agree with me that there are various cultural groups? Do you agree with the idea that, like, religion is a culture, nations are a culture, political parties are a culture, fandoms are a culture? Do you agree with that?
I'd have to think it through. I mean, not necessarily. Like, you just seem like you have a lot of different ideas on culture. Like, you seem a little extreme, and you want to like
What?
divide everyone.
This is my
Like,
jam, man. I love social
like you're
psychology,
trying to
man. It's
divide
all about
everything.
culture.
And I think what the problem with your line of thought is you're just you're just trying to break everything down to the smallest groups, and that means you're focusing on the differences.
Mm.
And I think you need to
What?
look at the similarities for once, because there's actually a lot more similarities than you'll give them credit. Like, for example, I was talking about Europe, and
Mhm.
yes, there's a lot of countries in Europe, and France is very different than Britain and Germany and Spain, but they're also very similar. There's a lot of similarities. They all had kings and queens at the same time. They all had, these naval fleets that started colonies across the globe. They all had similar moral codes, similar laws and rules. And yes, you look at it from afar and you're not very familiar or knowing of the history. You see their languages have different letters, but then when you break down, you're like, actually, Spanish and English is pretty close. It's the same characters, it's the same kinds of sentence structure, besides maybe flipping the subject and the predicate and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of similarities there that I think you're trying to ignore to make this whole like no white culture argument.
Well, I just if you have
Like,
a
think about it like this. They all, like, people in Europe, they look the same. They have similar skin colors, similar hair colors. There's variety, but there's also a lot of similarities, similar bone structure. They all grew that way because Europe was further north and it's a colder area. So it caused them to, form and evolve a certain way. And then in addition, they have like romantic languages. There's like 5 different languages based off of romantic languages. And then there's, the Germanic and the British languages that all are very similar. Like, yeah, to the uneducated, it might seem like, oh, they're so different. Like Germany and France are like totally different worlds. But I mean, they're not that different if you compare them to like Africa or China or the Middle East.
If the similarities outweigh the differences, why did the French take our side in the Revolutionary War against the English? That's the French, the white French, against fighting and killing the white English.
Well, I think you have this idea. You brought this point up before. It's not as good as you think. Like, just because different groups within a culture are fighting doesn't mean
Right,
they're totally different.
right.
They're different culture. I mean, I brought up to you on Twitter, the Hutus and the Tutsis fought in Rwanda in the 90s, killed each other, massive massacres. And, if you looked at them from afar, though, they look pretty similar. They both live in Africa. They have very dark skin, similar cultures, similar, dress styles. I mean, sure, this tribe might wear a different headband and this tribe might wear different sandals, but like, compare the Hutus and the Tutsis to France and Britain.
The difference
You know what
though
I mean?
is the culture.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is these countries next to each other share a lot of culture. Like, they're so similar, and you're looking past that because you want to break everything down and take everything to the smallest denominator. Like, if I wouldn't have stopped you in your intro, you would have been saying, "Oh, this person has too many eyebrow hairs." We're talking about eyebrow hair culture, and you're talking about
No, no,
teeth, talking about people
no,
that
I
brush their
wouldn't.
teeth in the
No, I
morning
wouldn't.
versus brushing their teeth before bed. Like, you're breaking it down way too far, dude. Like, you need to focus on how things are so similar.
I
And then,
would.
like I
I'm
was
going to
saying,
add that on. I think vocation is a culture. Like you have the medical community, which is a culture. You have the academic
yeah,
community,
you
which is
you
a
think
culture.
everything's a culture, but what's funny
That's a
is
good
you
one.
think
I like
all
that.
these things are a culture, but not
Professional.
white culture. You have
Because
all this stuff.
where does white culture fit in here? Like where are the white meetings? Like you can point to the Congressional Black Caucus, and you can say that's black culture because you can't get into the Congressional Black Caucus unless you're black. You can
So you think there's
point to
black
the
culture, but not white culture?
NAACP, and you can say that's black culture because you can't get into that. You can't get into the NAACP unless you're
So
black.
you are saying that black culture exists, but not white culture.
I'm saying that there are some cultures that have an ethnic component. Like I said, at the ethno-nationalists, you can't get in there unless you're white. They have an ethnic component. I'm saying
So
there
black people
are
do have that
cultures,
component.
but you're saying so. There's white people. That's a big
Mhm.
thing. You're saying that the white people is the culture. It's not. The white people is not a culture. Ethno-nationalist is a culture inside white people. Black
I'm not actually saying that,
The
by the way. You're
NAACP
pulling that reporter trick again. Like, what you got to do
well,
is
then what
just
are
don't
you
say.
saying?
don't say you're saying like
What?
that lady
Okay.
says to Jordan Peterson. Like, just
So
don't
you're
say
saying,
that. It's very
did I
simple.
so you so you're saying, okay. So tell me what you are
So
saying
I
then.
think I lost the hold on. I think I lost the stream for a second, but it looks like we're back. Let me double check the chat. Let me know if you can see stuff. It looks like we're back up. Sorry about that.
Everything is
But
fine on my end, so.
okay, it
I
said
got
connection.
a few super chats to read. Do you mind answering? It looks like people might have questions. We didn't
Yeah, go
talk
ahead.
about that ahead of time, so okay, I'll read some
Go
super
ahead.
chats. Well, no, actually, I want to know where like your. I think if
Okay,
you
yeah, here's
examine
what
the
I was about
placement
to
of the
say.
white culture,
I
yeah,
remember what
go
I was
ahead.
about to say. Basically, you're trying to put this on me, and my main point is from the beginning, white culture exists. There's a lot of different versions and different parts to it, but I'm not saying you have to be white. Like, there's no exclusive white culture. There's no like, oh, this culture you have to be white. Like, it's not like that at all. I'm just saying it exists. There's many different places that have us and have people and places we've started. And yeah, it's very, very simple. I mean, it's just descendants from Europe. We're descendants from the European nations. That's where most white people come from. You've spread across to other countries, other places. Russia is a part of that, as well as, uh, like I listed, America,
Do you
Canada, Australia.
do you
And each
understand?
one of those are different. I know that they're different. Like America is different than Australia, of
Thank
course, but
God. God bless
but we
America.
yeah, but you got to admit there's a lot of similarities.
With them? No. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest similarity is language. Like I was trying to explain
Yeah, they
language to you. Like,
talk
I
funny.
think you really underestimate how influential language is on a culture.
No, I don't I don't underestimate that at all.
Okay, so if
Language
you
is a lot.
understand that, then you could see that countries that speak English are, descendant or reflecting a part of white people's culture. You might just want to call it British or English to be specific, but that's a white country. And that's the point of today is, yeah, I'm not trying to be like, oh, this big pro white guy. Like, I don't care about race that much. But if someone comes up to me like you and you're like, white culture doesn't exist, I'm like, I don't know about that, dude.
Well,
Like, I could see a lot of white culture.
you have not explained to me like culture is a behavior. It's a set of behaviors. It's a set of narratives, okay? Like Christianity, you can understand as a culture, but it's not. It's open to any race whatsoever. So I don't see like if we're looking at a culture that's strictly white, what is the ethics of white culture? What is the behavioral package of white culture? What is the book that the white culture reads so they know how to maintain their status in this culture? That doesn't
Okay,
make any
okay.
sense to me.
Well, we could start with language.
Hmm. But
So we have
whites
English.
speak many different languages, though. Russians are white.
Yeah, I know, but dude, there could be more than one. Like they don't all have to speak the same language
Right. So then how is it a common culture?
because, like I was saying before, all of those languages, they might look different, but they're actually have very similar structures. They use letters, like they
Hmm.
use romantic languages. They use similar subject and predicate forms in
Hmm.
sentences. Like you can't compare these languages you're talking about, like white people languages. They might look different. They have different letters, but they're all forming sentences and stuff in similar ways. Like compare it to another culture, like say Asian culture or specifically like Chinese, Korean, Japanese. Look at their form of language. Like they draw little pictures for every word.
Yeah.
It's not even close to the European centered languages, which are all letters put in together to form words. So it's like totally different. You go to Middle East, their language, they have that Sanskrit, and
Hmm.
they read from right to left. They have a whole different setup for their pages, and it's just a whole other system. And then the point is, these languages close to Europe, even Russia being a more different one, also part Asian, by the way. But yeah, there's outliers, there's differences, but they don't all have to be the same. That's the thing. You're under the false assumption that everything has to be the same in a culture. It doesn't. Like there could be multiple versions.
Let me read some super chats. See if anyone has some questions that might.
Okay.
Uh, I'm assuming you have super chats on your end too, and I'm happy to answer any questions. At what
Okay, you go.
At what percentage of white culture being adopted by non-whites does it cease to be white? Seems like Brooks is arguing to stop being that culture if the majority isn't present anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I don't really it's kind of a silly question, but basically like we're talking you want to focus on America. You know, America was built by these European colonists, and you know it was established that way for hundreds of years. So until that actually changes a lot, it's still a product of this European or white culture, and it comes from them. Like we have influences like Magna Carta influenced our Constitution. You know, our Constitution had different laws that updated. And then, yeah, now we have lots of different people coming in from all over, and they're adopting this culture that still came from Europe. And then, yeah, one day, like I talked about before, maybe in another 50 or 100 years, it can morph into this whole other thing, but we're still pretty early on. I mean, we're talking about diversity and multiculturalism wasn't even a thing in America until like the 60s.
That was Hobo Frodo for $10, by the way. Thank you so much. It's very generous of you. Hobo Frodo also says for $2. Nobody said that in quotation marks. Brooks, after saying that, I think he's talking about you, like talking about white culture. I'm not exactly sure. It's passed already. So, you want to respond?
I mean, if someone puts words in my mouth, I call them out, and I'm not saying you're the worst at it. Have seen it 100 times, but you're definitely having a lot of false assumptions on your end. So I'm just trying to keep you in check on that.
I don't want to straw man you, man. I honestly don't. I'm trying to have a good faith conversation.
I don't think you're
with you.
trying to. Like I believe you don't, and I don't think you're trying to be racist with this take, but I'm trying to convince you and show you how this is low key anti-white. Because it's like, how hard would it be for you to just say white people have a culture? You're so against it.
You're so against it. What would be so difficult for you to explain to me exactly what you mean by white culture? I don't want to endorse something that I don't understand. Like the only white culture I see is the ethno-nationalists, and I don't want to. I fuck those people. I don't want to throw my lot in with the white nationalists.
That's why you're so defensive on this point.
Because first of all, I do not think that it's healthy as a society to be breaking culture down by race. I don't think it's healthy. I think what Christianity did for American culture is awesome. I think one of the reasons we freed the slaves is because they had the slaves adopted the Christian religion, and it was very hard for the whites to look at the slaves and say, oh my God, they're the same religion as us. If we actually read the Bible, maybe what we're doing is kind of fucked up. They started empathizing with them and saying, these are our culture.
The way I see it now that you mention it again is you hang out with a lot of radical leftists and like these very negative, like anti-white racist. So you got to walk on eggshells. Like you're scared.
I'm not scared. I believe these things, Brooks. I believe these things.
Like you've seen these people, like your co-hosts and your other guests are very vicious, very negative people.
I fear nothing. These are my actual beliefs. Okay.
Okay. You have to say that though. I mean, you would say that in this situation like I'm describing, because the point is you hang out with these people that call people racist all the time. They did it to me. They've done it to other people. They try to frame them up as like white nationalists. Like that's your guys' favorite buzzword. All these nationalists, like you say it like there's these boogeymen. But the truth is,
people. Yeah, those are fucking SJWs want to call everybody a racist. Okay, I'm going to get a hard time just on this show that I said I don't believe you're a racist. Okay, those people are going to try to pressure me into calling you a racist. How can you say that I'm bowing to that fucking pressure when I'm saying right here I don't think you're actually a racist? Like how do those two statements match up?
The way that you describe and talk about white
I
people
gotta
and
tell
won't.
you, Brooks, it would be a lot easier to throw my lot in with them and say, "You're a racist." Like, that would be the fucking easy route. Here I am doing the hard thing, like
Okay, I appreciate that.
trying to
I
separate
appreciate that.
out the
Yeah, yeah,
difference
I'll give you
here.
that credit. I'll give you that credit, man. We're just disagreeing, but I do think there is some fear there because
I'm
what you're
not What
saying.
am I afraid of, dude? I don't believe you are correct. I think that it is easy for people to tar and feather you as a racist because you're making this argument not very well. You're not making this argument clear. It's easy to jump, it's easy to conflate the argument that you're making as you are in favor of white nationalists because white nationalists are really the only ethnic
What?
culture that white people have.
See, that's the thing, dude. That's why you won't admit it. Because if if you say that white people have a culture, that that is where they take you. They call you a white
No, I
nationalist for no
agree.
reason.
But do you understand why? I'm saying there, and let me
No,
make this
no,
very clear. They're making a conflation. They're conflating anybody, and they've done this before, even with like you have made the argument before that you are a nationalist, and you're saying that nationalism is a group, and you are white, and therefore that classifies you as a white nationalist, but not a white nationalist, right? That's the argument that you've made.
I don't know what you're talking about anymore. I'm really lost.
Are
But
you a nationalist? Would you
I
classify?
mean, I love my
Yeah,
country.
okay. I would classify myself as a nationalist too. I fucking love America. I'm a patriot.
Yeah, I love this
Right.
country, and I don't hate white people.
Right. Yes. And there
And
are people
I'm not
on there are
crippled. I'm
social
not
justice
crippled with
warriors.
fear. Like I'm not scared of all these radical SJW types that are going to call me a nationalist or a racist, whatever. So
Right.
I am comfortable and strong enough to say, yes, we have a culture. Of course, we have a culture.
An
White people
American
have many
culture.
cultures,
An American culture.
right?
That's
American
not linked
culture
to
that
race.
that happens to be white.
Well, see, that's where you lose me because I cannot, and this is my belief, my this is the way that I feel. Like
Okay.
I it
Nathan has
feel
a super chat.
when you
He
say
says
things like that.
$2.
Okay.
He says, "What of white culture can other races not adopt?" I don't think anyone said they can't adopt anything. I don't think there's any kind of exclusive kind of thing to this. It's just like, okay, for example, let's talk about Wakanda. So we
What?
don't have a yeah, we don't have a proper example of an African country that a lot of people would want to move to. I don't know. You can maybe say that's offensive, but I haven't heard of an amazing place there. But I know Wakanda. I've seen Black Panther, and what I want to point out is, say Wakanda had a lot of immigrants, right? Like a lot of people coming in because it's a great city. I know it can't have immigrants, but at the end of the movie, they started to open it up, right? So Wakanda opens the borders, and a lot of say white people, Hispanic people move in. Similar to the numbers like immigration that's come to America over the years, right?
Are you making
But
the
those
argument
people,
that Wakanda is an ethno state? Is that what's going on here?
no, no. I'm just saying, if a lot of other minorities, according to Wakanda, if non-black people moved to Wakanda and started, families there, and they started raising the percentage of non-black people in that country, it wouldn't change the country. It wouldn't change the fact that it was built by black people and it happened to be part of their black culture. You know,
Right. It wouldn't
it's
change
just
the history.
yeah, the history. And that's what I'm getting at with America. Like that, just because some minorities came in hundreds of years later, it's not like we've totally changed the place yet. Like it might happen in longer time, but right now it's still the same laws, the same infrastructure, the same cities, the same everything. It's like it's a product of white people. And again, like I'm saying, I'm trying to clarify it because I kind of forget about the whole racist angle. Like I forget that like a lot of people that are very race obsessed and like calling everyone racist, like scared of like nationalists or whatever.
I hate
But
SJWs. I don't hang out with any of these
yeah, if you
people. What
leave
are you
that
talking
behind
about?
though, if you just ignore that, like there's no jump there. Like you just tried to make the jump on me. You're like, you do realize that people are going to call you a nationalist after saying this. And it's like, no, actually, I didn't realize that because I wasn't even thinking about it. I'm just saying that white culture exists, and I'm trying to talk some sense into someone who is pushing this anti-white narrative.
How am
It
I?
doesn't have anything to do with nationalism. Like that's what the left wants to do. They want to reframe it and call people racist. So, that's just their game. That's what they do, and that's what
Yeah, it's
your
for
co-host
politics.
likes to do, and other people that watch your show. Like that's how they operate, and that's why you know better. Like that's why you're so, stifled by fear. Like you can't even say white culture exists.
Because I don't believe white culture exists.
So what? You don't think Britain exists?
I think British culture exists. I think there's a lot of black British people. You see them on TV all the time. They have the accents. Like it's the culture is
Dude,
not.
you that is such a low IQ comment right there.
Why? Why is
So
that
you
low
think because
IQ?
there's a couple black people in Britain, it's not a
I
society that's been created by white people for thousands of years?
well, I mean, the culture that exists there now, obviously. I mean, if you want to go back into history, you can. And we're talking about like the narrative that established a nation. Like, if you want, I mean, one of the problems that we have with America is that our founding narrative has the unfortunate history of slavery in it, and we're trying to establish an American narrative that black people and white people can both be proud of. I mean, I would argue that that's part of the tension that's going on right now in a lot of
Okay. Okay.
the Black
So
Lives
to
Matter stuff.
me, so that sounds to me like you want to rewrite the history to let in the minorities and make them feel better.
We all want to feel good about our history, our founding narrative. I mean, you're upset. I guess, are you upset that
There you go.
the,
There you go.
yeah, are you upset that
I can see you learning. It's like watching like a monkey like pick up a stick and use it as a
did
tool.
you just call me a monkey? the
Yeah, I'm real
the
racist today.
now I lost my train of thought. Anyway, let me read another super chat and we'll see if this the U.S. was built on Judeo-Christian values, which evolved into the Enlightenment from that. This is Hobo Frodo again for $20. Oh my God, that's so generous of you. So the U.S. was built on the Judeo-Christian values, which evolved into the Enlightenment from that. They're not white and are in fact Middle Eastern and Semitic in origin, merely adopted and adopted by those who just happen to be white. So he's making the argument that the culture is separate than the culture is not dependent upon the skin color, because any skin color can adopt that culture. Right? I mean,
Okay.
that's the purpose of culture.
Yeah, I mean, like we said about America, like we've had lots of different people come in, and they're allowed to come in. No one's denying that. No one's saying that anyone's not allowed or you can't adopt this. The point is that white culture exists, and America happened to be founded by white people, just like how Canada and Australia and New Zealand did.
Mm-hmm.
And you just want to deny that because you're afraid someone's going to call you racist, and you also want to,
You keep
cater
saying
to
that.
minorities.
People call me fucking racist every day, and you make it sound like I'm afraid. Come on, man.
I mean, how
Why do you
hard would
keep
it
saying
be,
that?
like to say that white culture exists?
Listen, I'm making an argument here. You don't seem to understand the argument that I'm making. Let me try it a different way.
Uh-huh.
Culture is software, okay? Human beings are, the biological component of human beings are computers, okay?
Mm.
You can take a computer and run various different software packages on it, right? The culture. You were saying that the computer is the culture. That just because a white computer is running a a black cultural software package on it that makes the culture white because of the computer. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Like the culture
I mean, I don't know what
is
you're talking
distinct.
about. Honestly, I have no idea what you're saying anymore. Like, I just think you're not gonna get it, and you don't want to get it. And
What is white culture? What are you talking about?
I told you. Have you been listening at all?
What it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. You keep talking about various groups of white people that have cultures that are completely different from one another.
Yeah, those are white cultures.
Okay. And if those cultures do not like here's the argument that I'm making. In order for a culture to be exclusively ethnocentric, that has to be a part of the culture. So if a culture,
Who wants a culture like that?
well,
Who's talking about this?
if you're
Where are you
pinning
getting this shit from?
if you're
Like,
pinning the
dude, it's simple. Europe is a white dominated, like white
how
place
can
where
it be a
people
white
came from.
culture? How can it be a white culture if it can if the culture itself will allow anyone who's not white into it? How can it be a white culture?
Because we're cool people and we let everyone in.
Okay.
It's simple.
Right.
Like, why do you think
So
there
rap
can't be
music,
multiple?
by your
Why do
definition,
you
rap
think?
music is white culture.
No,
Okay, so rap music isn't white culture.
no.
But
But
American culture is
what I
white
will say
culture.
is these countries in Europe have historically been white. They've spread out to other countries and continents and created other nations. And white culture exists because, Britain is a white culture. Do you not think Britain is a white culture?
No.
Okay. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, man.
Well,
That
aren't
means
they
you also
willing?
don't think that
I mean, you could
Kenyans
make the
are a
argument
black
that
culture.
that Japan is a white culture because Japan doesn't allow other minorities to immigrate. Like, sure, they obviously recognize an ethnic component to their culture.
What?
Japan. Japan
Yeah, I've
has
heard
an
of it.
ethnic
I've heard of it.
component to their culture, right?
So they can be an Asian culture.
Correct. If the culture is unwilling to let other ethnicities into it, then you could say that culture is exclusively because it has a rule in the
Dude,
culture
what the
that is
fuck is
pinned to
wrong with your
ethnicity.
brain? What is wrong with your brain? Dude, who said it has to be exclusive? Why do you keep putting all these false limitations on it?
Do you what
It's just
let's get to your what is your definition of a culture? Maybe that's
I'm not
where
giving
we're
you a dictionary definition of a culture, okay? I'm not fucking Webster's, dude.
give me
It's just
your definition of a culture. You're talking about white culture. You got to know I got to know what you mean by culture.
all right, let's look it up. Let's go to the dictionary.
Well, I don't need to look it up.
Culture, the arts and other manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively. The customs, arts, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or social group.
Okay, I'll take
Ma-
that one.
So people would be European people, and they have customs and traditions and language and social institutions, achievements,
Can we just call it
and
rules and like rules?
whatever you want to call it. But the point is,
So culture is a
these
list of
cultures,
rules.
like, what I don't get is why you are just against white culture.
Why do you keep saying that?
Because you said Asian culture exists, right?
I said that any culture that has an ethnic component to it, you could call a whatever it is culture. If the
Why do you say
culture,
that though?
because not all cultures have an ethnic component. America is
Yeah, but
great because
none of
we
that.
don't have an ethnic
Yeah,
component.
but what you're saying isn't coming from anywhere scientific or rational. Like, this is just from your
What are you
own
talking
mind.
about? Come on, dude. You know that I'm well
No, I
read
mean,
in
no
this
one's
stuff.
saying that. I'm looking at the definition of culture. I'm looking online at other talks about it. Like, where do you get this from? Who said it has to have a racial component? Who told you that?
You are the one saying it has to have a racial component. Do I have to argue
No,
your side of this as well?
no, I'm not.
Okay, so if it doesn't have a racial component, then why are you saying it's white culture? Why is the way that you are framing it part of ethnicity if you're saying it doesn't have an ethnic component to it?
What I'm saying is there's a place in the world called Europe. A
Yes,
lot of a
we've
lot of
gone
those
over this
places
again and again and
there,
again. Many
they
different
happen to be
cultures.
white,
Yes,
and they started their own countries, and then they went and colonized other places and started other countries,
right.
and
I
the
know.
descendants in the countries that come from that, they're descendants in part of a wider white culture. It doesn't have to be all the same. They don't all have to be speaking the same language. They don't all have to have the same exact tint of skin. It could be a tan country. There could be lighter skin ones up in Iceland or something, you know? Like you're the one putting all these restrictions on it because you're obsessed with not letting white people have a culture.
I want to understand what you mean by
Like
culture.
just because you
I'm
can
not,
point out a
hold on.
bunch of
Whites are free to have a culture. Like, I don't understand what you mean. If you want to start your own white culture, go for it.
I don't know who wants to do that. No one
Well,
said
what
that.
you're the one arguing that there is a white culture. I don't even think I mean, the only
There's a
white
lot of
culture,
white cultures. There's a lot of them.
if a culture, well, I think my argument is clear. Can I read another super chat? Do you have more super chats?
Yeah, go ahead. You go first.
Christopher Keating for 10 euros, it looks like. French and English and other European cultures are definitely different, but there is shared history, linguistic roots, philosophy, religion, and art. Melanin levels are not really the point, though. So he's agreeing with me.
Right. I don't think they're the point either.
Okay, then why are you even making this argument?
They just happen to be white. It's just part of the coincidence.
Okay.
If they all had red hair and we were talking about this, we'd say they just all happen to be gingers or they happen to be blue. You know, we're just saying like the point is like you are worried about someone calling you racist because you're like
You
starting an
keep
ethno
saying
state.
that, Kathy Newman. So you're saying you're worried about people calling you
Okay,
racist?
okay, that's fair. That's fair. I'll try and stop that. But what I'm saying is you are looking two or three steps ahead, trying to make sure that you don't get into this. Oh, I'm a white nationalist now. I don't care about that. I don't care
The
if
argument
people
you're
call me
making
names.
is ridiculous. Okay.
All right, I got a super chat. It says PSA Sitch wants someone wants him to debate Mark Collette or Adam Green. Make it happen. Docs, thank you first. Thank you Nathan and Mestizo. Thank you Doc, who says black people in England are like 3 people. I'm sure it's more than that, but it is a small percent. Nathan then again says compare and contrast European and white culture. Uh, yeah, that's actually the last point's not a bad question, but I think the point is, like I said, I repeat it again: white culture exists. Mainly, its descendants or people from Europe. There can be different versions. There could be differences. They don't all have to be the same. And then to the next point is, I'm not sure how you can explain the fact that only white culture is not allowed to exist. Like, do you think black culture exists?
Well, I know exactly why people freak out about ethno nationalists. I know exactly why. I have my
Because they're lame dumbasses who are obsessed with hating white people.
no, because they have a majority. They can do whatever they want at the ballot box. Obviously, you'd be
White
more afraid.
nationalists?
Like peop minorities are
White
afraid
nationalists
of white
are.
nationalists for the same exact reason you are afraid of a black majority. It sucks to be in the minority.
I'm not afraid of that.
You're not afraid of a black majority?
No, I don't care.
Okay, that's good.
I'll be happy. I mean, yeah, I mean,
I
I'm
will
not
be
I'm not
happy.
obsessed with demographics. I don't really care. It's just that's just the way it is. Like
What if
I'm
that
not here to
black
argue.
what if that black majority is obsessed with race and they're anti-whites and they're racist against us? That could suck, man.
Yeah, that's bad. I mean,
Yeah,
I
that's
wouldn't want
terrible.
I don't like people that are racist, and that's why I'm arguing against this whole thing of like white people have a culture and people that say they don't are racist against us.
We all know you're
That's you.
we all know you're a wannabe goth. We all know you're wannabe goth, Brooks. We all know that you wear eye makeup when you're by yourself.
I don't know where you're getting this from,
I'm
man.
just playing with
You're
you.
losing me. You're losing me.
Brian,
Um,
go ahead. You got
so
another
so
super chat?
do you think that black culture exists?
Well, not really. I mean, it depends upon what the culture is. Like what
So
culture are you
no.
talking about? No, yeah.
Do you no, okay. So do you think Asian culture exists?
Asian culture.
You kind
I
of said you did before. You want to stand behind that or
well, I mean, like I said, we're veering off into areas that I'm not really well read in. So I mean, I would say, yeah, there's an Asian culture, but I'm only seeing it from the outside.
right. So you're allowing certain ones, but you're more likely to be against a white culture. That's
I,
what it seems like.
I
And
am
I
in a
think with
specific.
Asia,
I'm not against if there's a nation that's just white people and they want their immigration just to reflect that. I'm not. Who am I to say that they're incorrect? I don't think pinning your. I think it
so
hurts
what
you to pin
that's where
your
you get
net.
that's where you get you're doing that thing again where you say a country has to be only a certain race to have that culture. Who told you that had to be the case?
Let me make this very clear here. I am defining culture as a set of behavioral rules that a group of people adopts. And if that culture adopts a rule, no people with different skin color than us, then I would classify that culture as an ethnocentric culture. Now,
Okay.
is that clear?
Ian has a good comment here. He says saying white people have a culture is not the same as there being a white culture. And I think that's what I'm trying to get across too. Like that's what
Okay.
we're kind of debating. And like I think that's why I was trying to get back. Like a lot of this is semantics. Like I think if we could just get the terminology down, we might even end up on the same page. I don't know though. I mean, we've already done almost an hour and I'm not seeing any progress, but that's what I'm trying to say here is white people can have a culture. That doesn't mean there's a white culture and we're all the same. It doesn't. No one said, "Oh, and then what you're saying doesn't make sense either because you act like a country has to say, "Oh, we're only white and we're only letting white people in," and that's the only way you'll let them have a white culture. And it's just like, why are you being so specific? It's like you're being so specific because you know you're never going to find a case for that.
Do you understand my argument? Can you steel man my argument?
No, no. I
Okay.
think your argument comes from emotion, and it comes from like a place of you just being wrapped up in this like left wing. Like
I think your argument comes from emotion.
you've had
It
too many
comes from
bad
people
people.
being racist against you.
So you think me trying to say there's a white culture is because people are racist against white people?
That's what I believe, yeah.
So what would your suggestion be? Like just admitting that there's no white culture and
Just
letting
get
them.
over it. There's going to be racists in the world. Fuck those people.
Yeah, well, I think my side has a better argument to say that actually because all I'm trying to say is there's white cultures out there and you're trying to deny they exist.
I am not. Listen, steel man my
Like
argument. If we can walk away and you at least understand my argument, I'll call that a victory.
okay, if I still man your argument, it would be you don't want to admit there's a broader
No, 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 no. Don't
like
start it that way.
basically
Come on,
you
make
want to
my
just
actual
pinpoint.
argument. My argument, I would not say, I don't want to admit like that. My argument does not start with, I don't want to admit. Come on. Come on, Brooks. You're not even trying here.
Um Culture is more specific and it needs to be defined in a very
No, no, no.
narrow
Here,
way.
let me say it. You can just repeat it after me, okay? Culture is a set of rules.
Hmm.
Go ahead. Do you understand that part of the argument? Culture is like a set of rules, a package, a behavioral package. Like some cultures have the behavioral norm of Christmas. Other cultures have the behavioral norm of Hanukkah. Okay, they have different rule sets. A culture is a rule set.
Okay.
Are okay. I'll say the whole thing. You can steel man my argument.
I'm checking out. I don't have time for this. Like we've done an hour.
Okay, you
You're
got to
not
go.
going. You're not going anywhere.
No,
I mean,
this is my argument. I think other people can understand the
it's
argument.
that there's white cultures out there. Like there's white people. We have different cultures. I don't know why you want to deny that so hard.
I'm
That's the thing
not
I don't get.
denying it. I am not
Like
denying it.
no rule that says all cultures have to be the same. There's no rule that says your country
There is a
cannot
rule.
let in
Cultures have to be different.
races. Like cultures can be different. Like there can be multiple white cultures. There could be multiple black cultures. There could be
That fits in exactly with my thing. How does it not?
yeah, but you won't say there can be multiple white cultures.
There can be multiple cultures comprised of white people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You just
Okay.
don't want to. You just don't want to take it like you just have a
But
opposition to the idea.
it is not a white culture until they adopt a rule that says white people only.
That's according to you.
That's my argument. Yes.
Yeah, but that's not a rule. That's not a
Right.
definition. That's not something you can prove. That's just your opinion on
Well,
it.
the argument you're making is your opinion too.
No,
We have a
mine is
difference of
fact-based.
opinion. Yeah, mine is fact
fact-based.
based too. But
No,
we're
it's not. There's
choosing
no
different
rule.
facts.
No, there's no rule that says a nation has to what you just said.
Some nations do have that rule, though. We talked about Japan.
Okay, but that doesn't mean everyone has to have that specific rule. Like you're just trying to rule out a lot of white cultures with this specific rule.
Well, if it's a what you're calling a white culture that allows other people to participate, like like Hobo Frodo said, how many black people have to participate in the culture? Like, does the culture become fully black now and then it's still white culture? Is white culture the system or is it the people?
Dude, I just think there's a lot of cultures out there. Some of them happen to be white. White people deserve a right to exist, and
No
we
doubt.
should be able to have a culture and not have people attack us and say, "Hey, you don't matter. Like you're not a thing. Like you don't exist. Like everyone else is cool. Like, but not white people." That's the thing that I'm against, and that's what you're supporting. Not
I'm not
specifically, not in the most extreme ways,
I am
but
not
the
supporting racism against white people. I think it's fucking abhorrent. Like, listen to our
why
show
can't
on Sunday.
why can't you admit that there's some white cultures out there? Like, would that really
We're
kill you?
arguing over definitions here, Brooks. And
Yeah, it's semantics,
until you
and
can
it's like
steel man my argument, I don't know that you even understand my argument. I think
you don't
everybody.
have an argument. Your argument is white people can't have a culture. That's it.
I have made my argument. I feel very clearly to most people, Brooks.
Yeah. What? Oh, your chat is on board with you. Oh, you got a bunch of people
I'm
in the
just.
chat agreeing.
I'm
Good
not
job,
read. I am
Adam.
not reading the chat.
Started
I'm
up
just
some
reading the
people
super
on
chats.
Twitter. Congratulations. You got other anti-white people to agree with you. Oh, wow. I've never seen that before.
Why are
Dude,
you calling people anti-white, man? That's not even cool.
because you're not letting us have a culture. You won't even admit it exists.
If you want to start a culture that has a rule, only white people, go for it, okay? No one's stopping you.
What the fuck does that mean? Why would you say that?
Because
What is wrong with your brain? Like, where do you get this idea? I'm serious. Like, what are you thinking?
this is
Why would you tell me that, like, implying that's what I want? I don't want that. I've
okay.
never
You
said
don't
that.
want that.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
And then also
Do you want to
you're using a
maintain? Do you want to maintain?
definition.
So
This is not the definition of culture. You're making up your own definition.
you read the
Yeah, you
definition.
are.
You read
We
the
read the
dictionary definition and
culture.
I agreed with it.
We read the definition and it said nothing about having a specific race.
Exactly. That's my argument. Yes, that's my argument. You're the one making an argument that culture In order for I'm unclear because if
All I'm saying is white culture exists. Some cultures happen to be white. It's not because, oh, we want to be white or only can be white or you can't let in other people. That's
okay,
your bullshit. That's your shit you're making up.
well, we're having a disagreement over definitions. You're saying that
Yeah.
you're saying that a culture, that the
It
entire
can happen to be
population
white.
of, or is it just the majority? A culture that's majority white, you're saying, is a white culture. Isn't that insulting to the minority population of that culture? If you're saying, if you're telling the black community that you are participating in a white culture, that the culture is white, isn't it
I
less
don't I
offensive to
don't know.
say that it's an American culture?
I don't know. I mean, that's a whole other talk. I mean, it doesn't really have to do with our discussion. If people are offended by something, that's a whole other thing. Like, I don't know. If they're offended, okay, we can talk about it. But what does that have to do with the fact that America happened to be built by white people?
Well,
If they're
a
offended
lot of,
by it, I mean, that's all right. I mean, that sucks. I don't want anyone to have their feelings hurt, but how does that have changed the history? Like, why do you bring this up? Like, you're bringing up this emotional argument, like, oh, what if these people's feelings are hurt? What
well,
are you
we,
gonna do, Brooks?
uh, ultimately, I
Why
think
does that
we,
matter?
well, ultimately, I think we all have to get along. So I think that's important.
Well, I think you'd get along with people better if you stop saying white people don't have a culture. Don't you think? Don't you think if I went around saying black people don't have a culture, they might get upset about it? Like, at least just let it go. Like, I mean, do you have to keep saying it? Like, do you have to bring it up? Like, you guys bring me on your stream and like Sitch is laughing about it. You guys are calling me racist. You're like, oh, white people don't have culture. You guys aren't even a fucking thing. Fuck you guys.
Well, there are
That's
many
you, man.
cultures. There
That's
are
what
many
you're defending
cultures.
right now. That's what you're defending right now.
There are many cultures that are comprised of white people. I don't think of them as white culture. So, and I think white people would disagree over what white culture is. So it's difficult for me to say, just because people are white and participate in a culture that it's white culture. I mean, I wouldn't call Christianity white culture, even though Christianity is probably predominantly white.
I think you have it like in your head, like the phrase white culture is like a swear word to you.
Hmm.
Because it seems like you're
No,
very against saying it or
I'm
acknowledging it.
just trying to understand what you mean by it. That's all I'm trying to understand.
I
Like
mean,
I don't
it's
think it's a
simple, like,
swear word
you
or
do understand where Europe is, right?
yeah. Yeah, I know British culture, I know French culture, I know, Russian culture. All those are white people. They're all different
They
cultures.
happen to be white, so
Right.
those are white
So they're
cultures.
all white cultures. You're saying Russian culture is white culture. You were saying, like I have my hierarchy here, you're saying humans are top, then there is religions, then we have racial categories like uh, I would call it national categories, but you'd probably call it racial categories like Russian, French, English. I mean, it gets difficult when you come up with an American because American's not really an ethnicity. One of the things I think is great about America is that we're not pinned to ethnicity. But you want to pin it to ethnicity, right? I mean, or do you?
Not really. I
Okay,
mean,
so
I'm
you're happy with
fine
that.
with multicultural. I'm fine with different people, like, but I'm just recognizing the history that it was built by a certain group of people. That's a
Yeah.
coincidence. You could say it's a coincidence. I would say it's part of the the foundation, but it's not. It doesn't mean, oh, it's only white people or it's only you can't have this. Like, there's no limitation. Like, it's just like a city happened to be built by this kind of people, and then over time other people moved in and it changed over time, and it might not be that anymore, but it's still a product of that. We're still living in the aftermath and history of that. I'm not saying everything's white culture. Like, I don't really care. I'm not like this big pro white guy. I'm just saying our culture exists. There's white culture out there.
Well, I don't like
And
it when
it's not
people are
that hard to
racist
see.
against whites. I don't like racism.
Yeah, well, it's like it's pretty simple, Adam. It's just there's different cultures. Like you're just obsessed with trying to like I don't know. Like you say that French is a culture. You know, there's a lot of different people in France, right? Like there's a lot of different states, there's a lot of different dialects. Like
Yeah.
Britain has different things. You know, there's the Scottish and the Irish, and you know, there's all these different voices. Like they're very different. Like the way you break it down, you could break down everything, and there's basically no cultures besides like small family units. I mean, you could just keep going down and down.
Well, that's
We're talking
that's what I began this conversation with. There are nested levels of culture.
okay.
Yeah.
And one of those part components on the higher level is the area where your descendants are from.
Right. History.
History. And the history of a lot of these countries happens to be white. You know, it happens to be, and again, like I was saying before, white is just a term that a lot of people use. Like in America, you're not necessarily talking about a vague white color. You're talking about whichever original Americans immigrated from Europe, from the ones that come from Britain and whichever Germany, France, whichever it was, all those different places. And yeah, white is just a go-to word. And it's the same kind of thing from what I've heard in Europe. Like Europe, they're not always saying, oh, I'm British, I'm French. They're just saying, oh, we're white, we're European. That's just a go-to phrase. And I think the only reason people get hung up on it is because of anti-white racism. And there's all this talk about nationalism and talking about this thing. And it's like, you just can't even defend yourself if you're white.
I have a ton of super chats to read. Do you want to stick around for them, or you can bolt if you want? I feel like some of them might be asking questions of you. So,
I mean, I just got one that says, do either of you think white culture is immoral? When I lived in New Hampshire, most of the people were white there, but they all believed in a white culture. Compare and contrast European and white culture. Some good thoughts. I mean, honestly, I think the points are all made. I don't think you're going to change your mind or admit that white people have cultures. So I think that's it.
well, I do think like in places that are predominantly white and they don't want minorities to move in. I mean, that still fits in with what I'm saying about the argument of there being an ethnic component to their culture. I don't deny that people are ethnocentric, let's call them, not necessarily. I think racist is obviously a loaded term, but there are people who feel more comfortable being around people that look like them. Feel very uncomfortable about being around people who don't look like them. But I think most of that is a cultural component. I think if a black person moved into a Massachusetts and they shared the same culture, they dress the same, they talk the same, they look the same, I think people would not even compare them, not even think of them as black or Hispanic or whatever they were, because the culture is the important thing.
Okay. So white culture doesn't exist.
Uh, okay. We're just if I
I'm just saying. I mean, nothing's changed for you. You don't want to give
white
us
culture.
any credit.
The only example, it's so difficult because you're narrowing down. I am saying that white culture exists, and every time I give you my definition of white culture existing, you get pissed off at me because you think that I'm trying to call you a white nationalist or an ethno-nationalist. Okay, I have a understanding of culture that if culture is pinned to ethnicity, if ethnicity is one rule in the culture, the rule is nobody that's a different ethnicity is allowed. Okay, if that is a rule inside the culture, then you can say that culture is a blank culture, a white culture, a Asian Japanese culture, a whatever culture it is that is like us only. If you have an ethnocentric culture, then I would classify that as a white culture. Now you're saying to me, you're saying that white culture doesn't exist. I'm saying no, white culture does exist. It's the fucking ethno-nationalists, okay? That's the white culture.
So you do think it exists?
Yeah, ethno-nationalists are a white culture. Yes.
All right, then I win.
Okay, so are you an ethno-nationalist? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay, so you're saying that a white culture exists, but you are not a part of that white culture. Are you defending that white culture?
I'm not saying anything other than it exists, and you just
Okay.
admit it exists.
It does exist. Like who you'd have
So
to be
that
like
means
who
I win.
doesn't think it doesn't exist?
You were saying that at the beginning. We've been talking for an hour.
Right.
Now you said it exists.
Yes. I
So I
said that in the
win.
very I said that in the very beginning.
So will you say
You're
that
a
Brooks,
winner.
you won?
You're a winner. I
I
know.
won.
Obviously
All right, that's
obviously
fine.
Adam has destroyed Brooks here. We'll let
No, you
the
lost, dude. You said that they exist.
the
You
comments
care
below
too much
decide
about what
who.
people think. You care too much. You're like, oh, the comments are on my side. Let's see what the comments
Well,
say.
this is how
Fuck that.
culture works. This is how culture
No,
works.
no, it's not. You have a very poor understanding of culture.
Hmm. Okay.
What's your education?
My education,
Yeah,
grade school. I dropped out
grade
in the
school.
7th grade. No, I'm talking
No.
smack. I have a college degree. Uh,
Okay.
I studied art. I don't suggest it. It's pretty useless.
Have you
Mo-
ever lived outside of California?
yeah, I lived in New Orleans.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I lived in the South. Yeah, very very different environment. Cultural shock. I was a
So,
I was one of 3 white kids in an all black Catholic school in Southern California.
so you're an art major living in California who admits that white culture exists. Is that fair?
Ethno nationalist culture exists. Yes, I'm not a member of it. I don't
So you
participate in
already
it.
admitted that white culture exists. Are you backpedaling?
I do you understand what I'm saying, Brooks?
I'm just asking a simple question. You said it exists before. Are you
Yes.
changing that?
white 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 culture as the ethno nationalist culture exists. I'm not going to say
Okay,
Christianity
white
is white
culture
culture.
exists.
I'm not going to
I
say
win.
America is white culture. America's not
I
a
win.
white culture.
Um, your art degree didn't do you too well today because you
What's your degree
lost
in,
the debate.
Brooks?
Me?
Yeah,
I studied film and telecommunications.
nice.
Yeah, I have multiple degrees from a top school in Florida.
So can I read the rest of the super chats? Are you going to stick around or are you going to bolt?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Let's do it up. Let's see. There's got to be some on your side. I'm telling you. Brian K for $4.99. White doesn't amount to any cultural substance. It's a mere biological condition across many cultures, like he said about eyebrow culture. Yeah, there's no
Well, there
eyebrow
is something
culture.
worth pointing out. I mean, the top countries to live in the world all happen to be white. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know how you want to take that. The safest countries in the world, the most desirable places, they're not in Africa.
It's because of the institutions, though. It's not because of the skin color of the people.
If you say so, man. If you say so. I mean, I'm not saying it's just. I'm just saying they happen to be white, and I'm saying a lot of our descendants built great countries.
Hobo Frodo for $5. Message retracted. Oh, must have changed his mind. Hobo Frodo for $5. Brooks, describe the negatives of white culture and how they are identifiably exclusive from other cultures. What do white people do horribly wrong?
White people are self-hating. They buy into white guilt, and they do stuff like say there's no white culture.
Air guitar, I think, is also something that annoys me. So, uh, Ek, Ek, ECK Cones or EC Cones for $4.99 says an organization called White Men as Full Diversity Partners, which pro diversity, by the way, claims that white male is in fact a cultural identity. What the fuck? How do you feel about that, Brooks?
I mean, anyone that says we have a culture, I guess I'll try and get behind. I got all
Oh
these
my
anti
God.
white
Come
people
on.
things.
Brooks, you know that's SJW as can be. Come on. White men as full diversity partners? Come on.
I mean, at least they admit we have a culture.
That's fucking SJW as can be. What's the takeaway for $5 says, have either of you heard the honor culture versus dignity culture? Yes, I have. Seems like a distinction that would serve this convo well. Yeah, probably so. But Brooks, have you studied up on honor culture versus dignity culture? Can you tell us the difference?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, we'll save that for
Sounds
next
boring.
time. Yeah, science, boring. Negro Naras for €2.29 says ethno national is dead. Ethno international. Okay. Do you know what that means? I don't.
No.
Kevin Dugan for $4.99. The Judeo-Christian was invented in the 70s by the long-nosed tribe. I think that might be. Is that anti-Semitic? I don't know.
Sounds like it.
Okay. That's so weird. Long. Matthew Van Skoke for $5 says, let's say Brooks is right. What is the usefulness of the term and holding it as an idea? What is the usefulness of this white culture that you speak of?
I mean, we landed on the moon. We invented the internet and the iPhone and all kinds of cool stuff. Created some of the best countries in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty useful. If
East,
you like science, I mean, if you like science and technology and,
you just called science boring.
yeah, it's boring. It's boring to talk about, but it's definitely useful. I mean, we're using these computers to stream across the country right now.
EC Cones for $4.99 says, can a white person join or be a part of black or Asian culture? And if so, is it still a black or Asian culture? That's my big question.
Yeah.
Is it still? So a
Yeah.
white
If a
person
black
can
person
join?
moves to Tokyo, that doesn't make Tokyo not a Japanese culture.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That's what you were trying to say earlier. Like, if some minorities move to Mexico, that doesn't mean they're not a Hispanic culture. Like, just because there's like white people there.
Yeah, but a lot of cultures move and they form like Chinatown or Koreatown or I don't know.
Sure.
Is there a Russia town? I don't know. Greg Oots for $2 says, at this point, Brooks has straw man Adam Moore. Well, that's good, as long as we know who's winning the straw manning. Brian K for $4.99 says, white culture does not exist. There are white cultures. What is common among them is they are dominantly white people. Between people, it's not white. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like French culture and English culture may be predominantly white, but they're not white culture.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we just have different ideas about that term.
Culture
And
or white?
obviously, got like this stigma to people like you. Like, I never
Mhm.
realized it was this bad because I just hear it and I'm just like, I know white people. Like, I don't have anything against white people. Like, I've lived with them my whole life in my country. You apparently have lived with more minorities, so I think that has influenced you to kind of be against yourself.
I'm not against myself. What are you talking about? Like I don't empathize with people based on the color of their skin. I empathize with them based on their culture.
Okay.
The Alex Castle for $4.99 says, Brooks, rap is part of American culture. Brooks, America is part of white culture. Brooks, rap is not part of white culture. Yeah, see, that is a inconsistency in your argument. Alex
Not
Castle
really.
caught it. It
No, it's
is. It
not.
totally
You
is.
think you have this cute point, but you don't.
Well, we're super hyper rationalists around here. We're the big brain centrists. We're calculating. We look very much for like the
No,
the
no. Being a centrist doesn't make you smarter.
inconsistency.
It just means you're a fence sitter who's too weak to take a strong stance on things.
I take a strong stance on all my positions. Are you kidding me? What are you talking about?
Name one. Name one controversial position.
I'm pro-choice. I am pro-gun.
Those aren't controversial. That's
Those
just
aren't controversial. Oh,
that's classic American
abortion,
stances.
abortion isn't controversial. Oh, good. Glad
I
to
mean,
hear
it
that.
is for your liberal friends, maybe. I mean, no one I know is like
It
that. I
is for
mean,
your conservative friends too. Are you kidding me? Come on. I'm a baby
no,
killer.
we just don't want to kill babies, and we want to have a
Yeah.
Second Amendment. It's not
Yeah.
like controversial.
What about if you kill a baby with a gun though? Okay. Too far,
That's
too
murder.
far. Bobby B for $5. Far left SJW types are trying to deconstruct whiteness, white American culture. Brooks is just standing up for the culture white Americans created. Okay. The thing that I believe the SJWs. Well, I'll let you respond first, Brooks. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a pretty fair comment. I think, there's definitely now that I'm realizing how where I am, I know you guys like on your side, you're very apt to like misconstrue white people as racist and nationalists, which you attempted to do earlier in the stream. But whenever you just let that go, like I don't care about that stuff. And yeah, this comment you just read, it sounded right, even though some people will take those words like if you say white the wrong way, you're all of a sudden in the Klan or something stupid. It's not like that at all. It's just, we're just sick of people being anti-white and we're standing up for ourselves. And part of that is, getting others to acknowledge the fact that our culture exists.
Yeah, I this is why I hate SJWs, because SJWs are fucking racist. Like, this is exactly what bothers me. This whole idea that academia is trying to deconstruct whiteness. What they're actually doing is they're saying that white people is a fucking culture, and they're saying that that culture is like they have this complete straw man of white culture that they put up. We're colonialists, we're oppressors, we're dominators. Like, that's their narrative. It's the same exact thing when racists on the other side want to lump all black people into a black culture and say that that black culture is prone towards criminality. They have low IQ, that kind of thing. So the SJWs are just as fucking bad as the ethno nationalists, and
Yeah, but
that bugs me.
I don't ever see any of those nationalists. Like I always see SJWs and leftists all over the media and stuff taking over. I don't see any of that.
Yeah, a bunch of racists are taking over the media. Sound the
Yeah,
alarms. It's awful.
yeah, and it's the liberals.
Yeah, liberal racists. Yes, left wing racists. Yeah, there's racists on both sides. No, Nosferatu, Zod for $4.99. Adam, sounds like you're saying culture needs to be segregated. Well, segregating culture naturally segregates itself. Yes. The
No, I think they're
key
saying
is,
you're sounding a little pro segregation, like the way you make these absolutist statements,
well,
like,
what are
oh,
you
it
talking?
has to be all this race in order to be this kind of culture. It has to be all of this to be this. Like
No, I said in the
you're
very
kind of
beginning
thinking
that
of
there's
things in like
nested
a
hierarchies.
simpleton way.
No, no, no. I
Like,
said in the very beginning that there are nested hierarchies. You can't have a nested hierarchy and then be segregated. Segregation is there's this over here and this over here. When you have a Christian culture that has a smaller culture, maybe a Christian sect in it. There's Christianity here and there's Catholics here. You can't segregate Catholics from Christians because they're nested hierarchies.
okay, but then in the same sense, like according to your logic, there wouldn't be an American culture either.
There is an American culture. How is there not?
But what I mean, Florida is different than California.
Sure, there's different state cultures nested within American culture. All of
So
these
how come
cultures
that
are
doesn't
nested
apply to
within
Europe?
human culture. What's
So
that?
how come that doesn't apply to Europe?
What do you mean? How come it doesn't apply to Europe? It does.
So there's a European culture.
Sure. Yeah, totally.
Okay.
The
And
EU
then
is trying to form a European culture. They are. Yes. Totally.
okay. And then if I told you that some people call that white culture, like they call American culture white culture, would that throw you off? Would you not believe that? Like, you know that some people call Americans white people, right?
Yeah. Sure. Okay.
And they call Europeans that. So, I mean, really, you're saying the same thing. You just won't use that same word. Like, you know, you won't say it's American culture is a white culture.
American culture
You'll
is
you.
not a white culture. I mean, it's predominantly white, but what is white culture? You
I
keep
mean, we're not
punting
speaking
on what white
Chinese.
culture is.
We're not speaking Chinese.
Yeah,
We're
Chinese is
not
a culture.
riding. We're not wearing like tribal gear like the natives wore.
Drew Welty for $1.99 says Adam, traditional masculinity is a culture. Sure, yeah, traditional
Yeah, someone said
masculinity
it's
has a
not
set of
going anywhere
rules.
because there's no pure racial cultures anymore, and I think that's the problem is
No,
you're
that's a
taking
good
it to
thing.
these. No, it's not a problem. Like, I don't care if the things are changing. I'm just saying the problem with you is you're trying to make things so absolutist and like, oh, it has to be all one race and one culture.
I'm
And
not
that's
an
just not the
absolutist.
case.
No, I'm not absolutist.
Things are like more nuanced. Like you're not getting the whole thing. Like you can't really think past the first layer. You're just kind of blinded by the light.
Yeah, I love the way you debate, Brooks.
So I
I
got a
know you're
chat that says,
confused. I know you're confused right now, Brooks. I know this is all very confusing for you. You feel like a fog of misunderstanding. A lot of words are flying by you that you don't necessarily understand. You would need to look them up in order to know the words, understand the argument that I'm making here. But we don't
what
have time
words?
for that. I'm just
What
saying
words?
that I don't like that argument style, Brooks. I'm doing what you're doing to me back to you.
What?
The whole year, I know you're very confused about all this stuff. I know all this is very confusing, that you don't really understand things. I think I understand
Okay,
your
yeah.
argument.
I mean, yeah, I said that to you, but so you don't have any words that I misunderstood? You're just saying that as a joke?
Yeah, totally. I was joking.
Okay. Okay.
Are we
Yeah,
on
well,
are
I
we
mean,
on are we on good terms now, or are you gonna like am I gonna get a DM 3 days from now saying, fuck you?
no, I mean, I'll let it go from here, but you're still, you lost the debate. You admitted that white people have a culture.
I admitted that ethno nationalists have a culture. That white ethno nationalists have a culture. That's
Okay.
the white culture that I'm admitting to, just so that's clear.
Yeah, well, okay, then you just walked it back a little bit, but
Well, not
you're
really. I
still
mean, I
admitting
was
it,
clear about that.
and we just gotta now all we gotta do is get you to admit there's more white cultures, like Britain, France.
Right. I wouldn't classify Britain as a white culture, but
Yeah, and it's just now we're just talking semantics again. It's over. I won. You admitted that there's a white culture.
are you on
So that's
camera over
it.
there? Turn your camera on. I want to see your victory dance.
No, no, I'm not on camera, but I am pretty happy about it, and I'm also a little bummed because I got to get back to work. So I'm gonna have to let you go.
All right.
Real. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for the super chats. Last one's from Doc. They said, "Do you know that the best states in the U.S. are mostly white and black culture are poor because they need white people to help them?"
Oh,
Do
okay.
you know that the best states are white?
I did not know that. No, I don't. I'm not an expert on the demographic makeup of the United States, so I
But
don't
you
know that
recognize
they're.
all countries in the world happen to be that race, right?
I do know that Alabama is the poorest union of the state. That Louisiana is. Oh no, it's Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. I actually lived in Louisiana, and there is a large black population there, but there's also a large white population there. And Alabama, I mean, the white people are poor and the black people are poor. So I don't know what he's saying.
Okay, we'll call it there. Thanks for coming in, guys. We're going to wrap it up. Everyone have a great day. Let's not be negative Nancy's. Let's not attack each other
Yeah,
and
let's not
say
do that.
other people's cultures don't exist. Let's just let everyone have a culture. No need to be negative Nancy's and say, oh, you don't have a culture. You don't exist. Let's just all be happy people and have a good day and not let this bring us down.
Word. Take care, man. I'm still on. I'm gonna stay on because I have a couple more super chats to read.
Thanks for having me. I'll talk to you later.
Take care, man. All right. I'm still live. I have a couple more super chats here. Gemini Samimi for $5 says, I love you, Adam, and I agree with you, but you aren't really making much progress. Yeah, I know. I wasn't really making much progress. So I guess I will. How long are we going here? Let me see. An hour and 40 minutes. So I guess I'll just wrap it up here. I see PSA Sitch in the chat there. Proof Adam is sidekick. What is that? Actually, I was on the Ralph retort, or no, it's a kill stream with Ethan Ralph and Dick Masterson, and Vito was there, and Corinne, another YouTuber that I'm not really familiar with, and we all agreed that PSA Sitch was the sidekick. It was decided last night. So I guess you didn't listen. I guess you weren't a part of that decision. Obviously. You lost the debate to no BS. Proof you're the side. What the fuck? I got my own. Listen to this. My own, being attacked by my own co-host. This is bullshit. Bob B for $5. We won't, Brooks. I learned from the last Sitch and Adam stream, we don't make fun of the R words. All right. Don't go too hard on Brooks. We can make a little fun of him. I feel more comfortable making fun of people that I'm on good terms with, obviously. But it is what it is. I'll go ahead and leave it there. Thank you all for the super chats. It's been very generous. Obviously, let me know in the comments below what your feelings about this were. If there's better arguments that I could have made, let me know. I will put them in my arsenal. Take care, everyone. Have a great day, and we will see you in the next. Hummer Eduardo Rodriguez Medrano for $2. A perfect example of Sitch's Law. I was thinking it the whole way through, Hummer, but I just didn't want to say it. I didn't want to give credit to Sitch. Somehow that needs to be Sitch and Adam's Law. I think I am amending Sitch's Law now to Adam and Sitch's Law. Arguing over definitions. I kept trying to get him to accept my definitions. I did feel a win when he looked up the dictionary definition of culture, and the definition I've been using the whole time was actually there. Definition number 2. So, set of rules. A moral community, which is basically the same thing. So, all right, take care, everyone. See you in the next video.